Welcome to Voices of CFMA, Construction Financial Management Association's podcast featuring conversations with industry leaders, sponsored by Profix. I'm your host, Sal Marino, CFMA's Marketing and Content Manager. This month, I am joined by Ben Osborne. Ben is a Vice President and Senior Risk Advisor at Huntington Insurance and has 16 years experience with clients in the construction industry, industrial space, commercial insurance, workers' comp, and risk management. He is also a CFMA member of the Metro Detroit and Northwest Ohio chapters. Also, Ben is the inaugural subject or maybe model for CFMA's new Instagram page, People of CFMA, which launched last week. Ben, thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks for having me on, Sal.
So let's just jump right into this. Can you give me a little bit of background about how you got into your line of work?
Sure. Thinking about this question, it goes back to, I think I was around 11 or 12 years old, and I come from a family of electrical contractors. So, my dad was a union local 8 contractor. My grandfather was a local 8 union electrical contractor. And, I knew very early on, kind of throughout my life, working alongside dad, grandfather, that, I think I wanted to do something different with my life than go into the electrical trades. Respect the electrical trades, grew up on them, learned a lot of good stuff throughout my life through that. And, have nothing but the highest amount of respect for, and again, I guess that plays into part of my story as well, is why I do a lot of work with contractors. But I remember my dad asking me, he said, you want to do what I do when you get older? Or what do you want to do? And I said, no, you know what? I don't think I want to be an electrician when I get older. And he didn't have anything bad to say about that. He kind of wanted me to do what made me happy. And he's always encouraged me to do that. So I said, what's our neighbor Vern do? Vern Starr, he's a couple doors down. He's got kids that are my age. He always seems to have a lot of time to spend with his kids. He seems like he's very happy in his career. And my dad said, well, Vern owns an insurance agency. I said, really? I said, okay. Fast forward, we don't really talk a lot about it throughout, my high school years. I get into college. I mean, I go to Western Michigan, and my first thing I was targeting was aviation, to be a pilot. And, quickly kind of changed my mind, wanted to go into business, was looking at accounting, and decided to, I kind of felt this more entrepreneurial spirit as I started to go through college, and ended up with a business management degree from Western Michigan. Get out of college, really, insurance really wasn't on my radar even at this point. Until we had a good family friend, he's like my second family growing up. And Dave Cousineau, Dave's cousin, was Chuck Hyatt, who owned an insurance agency locally and was very well respected, had a really nice business, 3 offices. And he said, you know what, Ben, I think you'd be really good at this, just with your personality. And I'm going to see if I can get you a meeting with my cousin, Chuck. And I said, okay, great. I'm out of college. I really wasn't sure which direction I was going to go. That's kind of where my journey started. I met with Chuck Hyatt. Chuck said, we really don't have a position for you. I was 21 years old, right out of college. And he said, but we do want to grow our commercial lines book of business, our business insurance. And, we'll give you a shot. So that's kind of where my story started. A few years into that career, really learning the business, being pretty successful at it, in my second year, led me into my third year, actually having an opportunity to buy into and take over Vern Starr's book. So the story kind of comes around. The guy who I talked about when I was 11 or 12 years old, that has always been, a big time mentor and father figure to me. I got a chance to take over his business with one of his sons. So how cool for that to come full circle 12 or 13 years later. And then, kind of the rest is history, as they say. I've always really loved the dealing with contractors since day one of being in the business. I started 16 years ago. I've transitioned into a larger insurance brokerage where I can do more things. I can help more construction clients, and that's just kind of, I guess that's how I got into this line of work.
No, I think that's fantastic. I love that at such a young age, first of all, that your father was cool with you, like not following in his footsteps, you're following a neighbor's footsteps. And then that even when you said you wanted to be a pilot, like the insurance still came back to that. And you were like, you know what, that's where I want to go.
Couldn't get away from it.
Right. That's fantastic. So building off that a little bit, what brought you into CFMA?
After leaving, I made a tough decision to leave my agency that I had created. I had for 7 years with part of Vern Starr's book and with a captive agency. So I was very limited at what I could do for some of my construction clients, and moving upstream with more sophisticated risk. I really needed to have more options available. So I transitioned into an independent brokerage out of Toledo, Ohio, that was eventually purchased by a much larger insurance brokerage. And that's kind of where I had met. The guy's name's Jim Lordy, and he's still a very good friend of mine today. Still does a great job in the construction industry. When I declared, I said, when we were bought by this large brokerage, we had to actually declare our major as far as niche market. And I said, my number one choices, if we have to declare, is contractors. I like working with contractors. I get along with them. I grew up in, kind of in the business, and it's just a natural fit for me. What came along with that was, our surety person at the office, who'd been there 20 plus years, Jim, had said, "Hey, Ben, we should partner up and take on the construction industry together." And he said, these are a couple organizations I've been involved with that I've met a lot of really good people with. And the first one he brought up was CFMA of Northwest Ohio. And he said, man, I've created some really great friendships through this organization. And, we've gotten some really nice clients because of those relationships. And that's really how I've always liked to do business naturally, is get to know somebody on more of a personal level, kind of gain that trust from them, let them know kind of how you do business, how you work. And then when the opportunity comes along, maybe they'll give you a shot to work on their business. So, so that's Jim Lordy. I mean, he brought me in. He said, Northwest Ohio is a very, very strong chapter. I remember the first meeting he took me to, there's like 30 people in the room. I'm like, this many people are involved at this level of this chapter? And, going to some social events saying, man, it's like these guys have known each other for 20 years, and they had. I'm like, man, what a strong organization. That's kind of what led me to Detroit too, was Jim was like, hey, Detroit's struggling. And they were. My first meeting I went to, they were talking about if they were going to keep the chapter alive or not. And I really looked at that as a big opportunity to say, you know what, Northwest Ohio is so strong. If Detroit had those building blocks of building that strong board and that strong culture, I think this thing could really do well. And I took it on as a challenge. From 6 years ago, almost folding, to 2 years ago, we were chapter of the year in Detroit. So we've done a lot of work, and it's not me. It's that team, it's that board that's really got us to where Detroit's at, and having our first regional this year. A lot of big things were accomplished in Detroit, and I'm super, super proud of everything we've done there. So
that's great. So before we get to our next questions, here's a word from our sponsor, Profix.
Profix software centralizes all your financial data, including ERP, CRM, HR, estimating, and project management for a complete view of company performance. Contact Profix to learn how we can help better manage your project's cash forecasting, WIP reporting, margin fade, and equipment utilization.
So, as I'm sure you're aware, Spring Creek is approaching in October and November of this year, and you are a previous attendee. Can you tell me a little bit about how Spring Creek has helped you in your professional or personal life, or perhaps both?
Yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, Spring Creek is great just to learn all of the additional resources that CFMA has to offer and how to access those. I didn't realize how much was actually at my fingertips until I went through the Spring Creek. And, like any conference or any sort of educational thing that you go to, you're going to take out bits and pieces of knowledge, and that's going to help you personally and professionally. I completely believe in that. Spring Creek's more intimate of a setting where it's a smaller group. You're definitely getting more time to talk and to figure things out and to ask questions, and you really get to know that Spring Creek group that you go with on a much deeper level, which has been awesome. And we've really kept in touch, and going to the first national this year with that group, because it's been a few years since I've been to Spring Creek, but because of the events that have happened the last couple of years, we weren't actually able to attend a national together. So it was bittersweet this year to get to hang with everybody. Those are lifetime friendships and relationships that we've made at Spring Creek that, it's really cool to keep those going. And I'm, excited to see where that leads to in the future.
So on this podcast, we talk a lot about advice. Our listeners love advice. Can you tell me maybe the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I think this goes back to, I can't really pinpoint who gave me the advice, but it's I live my life, and I tell this to a lot of people, is, I think a lot of it is you surround yourself with good people, with successful people. If you're trying to get better at, let's say, even a sport, you want to play with people that are better than you in that sport, and it only makes you improve your skills. And I agree, on a personal and professional level, I think that's huge in anyone's life. If you go back to high school, there's whys in the road, right? And it's like you go down this path or this path. And, if you take a step back and you really look at both of those paths and say, if I would have went down this road, I don't think my future would be quite as bright. And I think you kind of know that at the moment, but sometimes you do make, I haven't made all the right choices in my life, but, I think surrounding yourselves with good people, with successful people, with people that encourage you, people that are positive is definitely a key to, just a happy, successful, fulfilled life.
I think that's great advice. And do you have advice for someone who's new to the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of organizations through my career. And even going back to high school and college, and this remains true across everything, is you get out of an organization what you put into it. If you're just going to show up to a meeting or a social event just to show face, and then you leave, you might meet a few people, it's not going to be as fulfilling as if you really dive in and get your fingernails dirty and take on a task, or get outside your comfort zone, really get in the trenches with some of these folks in the organization. The incoming president at Metro Detroit, his name's Chris Green. Chris and I have become really, really good friends through this organization, have similar interest in baseball and life and, investments and things of that sort, that, if I didn't dive in and get to know Chris and really go through the tough times in Detroit of our chapter almost folding, I would have never met him. So it's, really treasure that friendship. And I didn't know that was going to happen when I started this, but hey, if you dive in, you put in some work, you get uncomfortable a little bit, you never know what's going to happen. And that's, it's kind of how I live my life. And I think it's good advice to others is try it out, get involved.
That's fantastic. So I just have one final question. Are you prepared for the fame that being on CFMA's Instagram page is likely to bring you, like maybe a fake mustache when you go out in public, stuff like that?
Again, going back to being uncomfortable, I'd say, yeah, you're definitely putting me in that uncomfortable zone, but I'm ready, ready to jump in the trenches with you, be the first guy here. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure I'm going to get some messages from some folks across CFMA after this comes out, but bring it on.
All right. Sounds good. Well, Ben, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sal. Appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Voices of CFMA. If you're looking to learn more about Spring Creek and the 3.5-day retreat for chapter leaders, please visit cfma.org/Spring Creek. Also, if you'd like to watch Ben start his modeling career, please follow CFMA on Instagram at our brand new handle at CFMAHQ. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe and share on social media. And if you're interested in learning more about the Construction Financial Management Association, check out CFMA.org.